When my eldest kid was 2.5 or so, he didn't want to ride in strollers anymore. He wanted to ride in his little red wagon. So one day, I'm pulling him along the sidewalk, headed for home after a walk, and I feel the wagon jostle behind me. I glance back, and he's standing in the middle of the wagon. So I stop, obviously. I told him to sit down because it wasn't safe to stand in the wagon while I pulled it. Well, he got flustered and said, "You never told me not to do that." There are 10 million safe ways to get through the world and thousands of unsafe ways, and he wanted me to name every rule. That's not how this is going to work. I can't make a rule for every possible thing. But he wasn't wrong. How would he know? The rest of the walk home, with him safely seated in the wagon, I pondered this problem. My kid had no way to discern what pragmatic rules to follow if I hadn't said them out loud. He was so self-contained that he wasn't prone to learn by watching or example. And he was 2. So it's not like his brains were fully formed either. But I couldn't be there for every decision he might make forever. My husband is a Quaker, and he and I used to go to meeting for worship together. The Religious Society of Friends, as you may know, unprogrammed Quakers, are masters of discernment. The practice of meeting for worship is described as waiting on the Spirit to move you to share a message with the meeting. But in that process, discernment is absolutely essential. Even when somebody does feel moved to speak, they don't just stand up and speak. First, they determine if that urge to say something is their own ego, some old script playing out, or actually a leading of the Spirit. And then they have to sort out if it's a message for this group at this time, or if it's just more of a message for them. While I was walking home pondering pulling the wagon, I focused on what my kid would need as he was making decisions, and I went back to this. It's not the same steps as for speaking in meeting. I needed a different set of filters. Safety was obviously on my mind, given the wagon incident. But there's a ton of safe that is still not good decision-making. I finally settled on 2 more layers in the filter. After safe, respectful, and after respectful, kind. Safe, respectful, kind, a good place to start. That was over 25 years ago. Since then, this kind of approach has popped up all over the place. I'm sure you've seen it for kindergarten teachers and parenting. Most of the versions I see are a checklist, though. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is a good example. All 3 or nothing. Simple stack. No specific order, just check against the list and check them all off, or don't say it. Which I guess kind of works. But one of the things I felt was important was the sequence of layers of the filters. The way I have this structured is a little like sifting soil at an archaeology dig. Or look at the photo on the cover of today's order of service. Trying to find the smallest fragments of something precious in a jumble of different things means carefully picking through all of it. Larger rocks are in the way, there's a chaos of medium-sized stones, even more of the smallest. A tiny gem might get missed in all of that. And searching for the right answer out of all the possible answers could be overwhelming. Out of every possibility, Pick one that matches these 3 conditions. I'm not asking a 2-year-old to do that, or a 7-year-old, and I don't want to do it either. At an archaeology dig, people use screens. They're like a box with like chicken wire on the bottom to filter objects out of the soil they dig up. So soil goes in the top, things filter out. The screen with the biggest holes is first. That takes out the big rocks and roots and other items of interest that are large. The second screen catches medium-sized items, but the littlest stuff will still fall through. And then you can pick through what remains much more easily and spot the small thing you're hoping to find. Using safe, respectful, kind was a matter of stopping, looking around, and thinking through, but it wasn't 10 million possible right answers and 1,000 wrong answers all at once. It simplified the process and allowed each decision to be felt through independently. And that's exactly what I wanted my kids to learn to do, not just think it through, but feel it through and embody the structure of safety first, and then respect, and then kindness. In that order, for certain. Without safety, the other 2 aren't super meaningful. If I am behaving with respect and kindness while letting myself or others be hurt or harmed, is that really respect and kindness? Also, if I pick kindness first, I might limit the creative field to just what feels most warm and soft out of every option. And then if I narrow from there to what is safe, I might miss some better options. I might not even think of them. And in an emergency, safe is first, and if that's all I can get to, then I can repair the harm of disrespect or harshness far more readily than I can repair unsafe. We do this all the time spontaneously. It's a natural human behavior. I'm just naming it. We yell and grab people away from danger and then apologize for the sudden roughness. We do safe and then we repair if we weren't respectful or kind. And I also leave kind for last because our culture is weird about the sequence of safety and respect and kindness, and has definitely mixed all sorts of supremacy garbage in there with it too. Kindness is last because I was raised to believe kindness comes first, but then I still did unknowingly racist things with that training because I hadn't considered respect or safety. Nice white lady behavior is kind. At least toward someone marginalized. So safe, respectful, kind. For immediate actions and behavior, the kinds of things that little kids do, it works. Not bad for other situations too. Like management and ministry. What keeps my team safe? What keeps my congregation safe? What is respectful? How do we be kind? I'm sure you can all think of a variety of ways that this could be applied. Physical safety, relational safety, fair and equitable pay, appropriate workloads, public praise. These all fit through that filter. And it doesn't solve everything. I'm sure you can think of things where this would not apply. Any of us who have been managers for any length of time, or parents, or teachers, or any kind of leader of any kind of group, we know that it's not always as simple as safe, respectful, kind. So that's where my second set of filters comes in. As my kids got older, I discovered that past about 7, safe, respectful, kind didn't always fit the scenario. If they wanted to go on a camping trip with friends, it didn't really help make those decisions. So I added effective, prudent, congruent. Same approach. Effective removes anything that's actually not going to work. So then you don't even pursue that track. It has to solve the problem. But some things that solve the problem create other problems downstream. Prudent is looking to see where the solution is going to cause some other problem later. So effective and also prudent gets us to a pragmatic range of options. If we're being sufficiently creative, it can be a pretty big range. So then we add congruent, aligned to who we are, to our values and principles and ideals, aligned to our sense of self and community, aligned to our ethics. That takes us the last step. It's the moral compass. Just like safe, respectful, and kind, effective, prudent, and congruent flip their order when supremacies and other oppressive systems get into the mix. And I'll give you an example. Politics. Here's where I pull Mayor Mamdani back in the frame, because politics typically starts with some kind of idealism. It's starting with congruence, which doesn't consider practicality necessarily, but then when it gets to work, gets into the systems orient to avoiding pitfalls and waste. Prudence crushes it. Sometimes we can get too effective out of that, but so many options have already been lost. Idealists get crushed by the machine and can end up bartering their values just to get anything done. Those that hold on are both stubborn and exhausted. And by contrast, we know what happens when the focus is only on effective, without a moral compass or consideration of the impact on or implications. We get paint peeling in an algae swamp where a reflecting pool should be. We also know what happens when prudence is the only consideration. Inaction, decision paralysis, the anticipated consequences on every side, slowing all the progress down until nothing really changes, and the moral compass doesn't even get a chance to be considered. Prudence in government has been the hammer and the disguise of folks failing to govern probably forever. Now, Mayor Mamdani might not be using these filters intentionally, but they map up. He knows what he wants to do, and he needs it to be effective. Even if he used his moral compass to pick the problem, he's focused on a solution to the problem, without regard to any of the established channels of carefulness, without looking first at what would rock the political boat too much, what would actually work. Ideals can pick the problem. Effective drives the solution. Then look at how to make it function without creating a bigger problem. What are the secondary options that we can filter down to? And then pick that final option that is true to values, congruent with the person and place, to the souls of the people of New York City, aligned to the ideals that got him elected. So now we have Mayor Mamdani showing up at the Rikers High School graduation, congratulating the graduates with delight and enthusiasm. You want to tell people that they matter? You want them to believe you? He did that. He did it effectively. Encourage them beyond that step. Encourage others to work on their education. He did it. You only have to look at the faces of the incarcerated graduates to know the impact. Effective, prudent, you know he made some choices around that, but they don't always have to show. And entirely congruent. One of the hardest parts of implementing these three sets of filters, you notice I said two so far, There's a third one. That's a whole other sermon. It's for relationships. The hardest part is that it has to apply to everyone in whatever unit is involved. For my families, these filters applied to me as a parent too. And there's nothing that a 3-year-old loves more than catching mommy making a mistake. Especially when mom then has to admit she made a mistake and apologize. I was safe, but I was not respectful. I'm sorry. Now let me try again. As soon as our kids knew that we would use the same filters, they were all in. And none of us is perfect at this. Not one. It was mortifying to discover how often we were disrespectful to our kids. I have friends who use the filters too. None of them were perfect either. We're all human. I still mess up on this after 25 years. Human brains are really good at justifying what we want, slipping in the dopamine, succumbing to the dumpster fire timeline despair. We're complex and nuanced and messy. And we're all really tired for a variety of very good reasons. But as imperfect as we are, anytime we're approaching a new kind of problem, a new role, a knot we can't untangle, something that just seems to not get fixed over and over again, a team member who might be focused on other things than their jobs, we can reach these filters to organize our thoughts and think through our plans. Tess Gallagher in the poem Choices. The view ends up all trees and no mountain, a choice made for safety, respect, and kindness. Mayor Mamdani at Rikers, the opportunity to encourage and congratulate and celebrate, he got it done. Effective, likely prudent, distinctly congruent. And us. We're in a world that some days feels like 10 million bad options and a lot fewer good ones. But we keep getting up and trying again. Whatever method we use to make good decisions, I hope we put them to good, practical use. For those we never meet, for those we encounter every day, and for ourselves. Blessed be.